With over 50,000 table saw injuries every year in the United States, the table saw is among the most common and can be one of the most dangerous tools in the workshop. These injuries have two known causes. One is blade contact, where, for whatever reason, the operator makes bodily contact with the blade while the saw is running. The second is kickback, where the operator loses control of the workpiece. The workpiece then becomes a dangerous projectile which can cause severe bruising, can break ribs, cause impalement, and lead to blade contact. In this video, I want to demonstrate what causes kickback and how you can avoid it. So I built this machine, I guess you could call it, to simulate the ideal conditions for kickback to occur. This mechanism uses a push stick controlled from the outside of this polycarbonate box, which is clamped to the rip fence. I'm using a push stick because it only has one direction of force, forward. It doesn't apply any downward pressure to keep the workpiece from lifting up off the table, or inward pressure to keep it tight to the fence. I also removed the riving knife, which is one of the essential components of kickback prevention. The results are predictable and consistent. Here's why. Physics. Check it out. Because the wood is making contact with the tabletop and the fence, as soon as you start pushing it, there's friction, and it's naturally going to want to take the path of least resistance, which is why it strays away from the fence. Just so you can see there's no funny business going on, like me pushing the stock at a weird angle, I've attached a push stick to this miter gauge so that when I push it, you can see it's moving exactly parallel to the blade. I have the fence set at 2.5 inches, which is where we have it set for our experiments with the kickback machine. Yes, I'm aware that the push stick is in the wrong position in the experiments we ran in the kickback machine. Why? Because we were intentionally creating kickback. Let's see what happens when we run the push stick right along the fence. See, we knew that was going to happen. We're creating a pivot point at the back corner of the piece to make the front veer out and make contact with the rear teeth of the blade. What happens when we position the push stick in the dead center between the fence and the blade? You watching? Same thing. I agree, you wouldn't normally run the push stick right along the fence, but what happens if you're making a 3/4 inch cut? You have no choice but to run it along the fence, and the same thing is going to happen. So now we're thinking, okay, to avoid this, all we have to do is apply some inward pressure to keep it tight to the fence. So I introduced a featherboard to the mix to apply that pressure. The problem is that the featherboard can only be positioned up to the front of the blade. If it's any further past that, it's just going to be pushing your offcut piece into the blade as it's spinning, and that's dangerous. Yes, in my experiments with the kickback machine, I didn't have a riving knife in. And I'm going to show you why I did that. It's because even when we use a featherboard and we push a piece of stock this size through, it still turns out before it ever reaches the riving knife. So between the end of the featherboard and the beginning of the riving knife, if your wood separates from the fence, you run the risk of it catching those rear teeth of the blade and it shooting back out at you at insane speeds. Again, I want to reiterate that this was specifically built to intentionally create kickback, to show how violent it can be, and to show how easy it is for it to happen given the right conditions. What if that hit you in the face? If you don't want to find out, stop using push sticks and get yourself one of these. This is a gripper. If you don't know what a gripper is, where have you been? Of course people make cuts with push sticks every day without incident, no question. We're simply saying that the risk is there and we have the solution. Click the video below to learn more about preventing kickback and working smarter with America's most trusted #1 selling push block. And now if you're reviewing enjoyment, extreme close-ups of kickback in super slow motion.